artist.
You already started talking. I don't want to miss anything good.
Okay, we're live.
That was one of my questions was how you two met. So you've known each other for a while.
Yeah, so I'll say it again. So Peter and I met in Syracuse, New York in graduate school. I was studying environmental science. Peter was getting his MFA. What was that in, Peter?
So I was doing I was doing two majors at once. So I was doing video art and computer art, but I was also doing kind of social activism at the same time. So it's kind of evolved into this field called like ethical hacking, and just new types of social activism. So that's basically what I was going to school for and then doing afterwards.
Oh, right.
Really bizarre stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Ethical hacking. I think I've heard of it. And I like ethical things, so I'm gonna say that I'm on board with your career choice.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I actually studied bioethics too before I was in Syracuse and met Peter.
Bioethics.
So, yeah, bioethics is kind of a little growing field of philosophy that is like, applies ethics to different biological, environmental science questions, or also like health questions, like, they have
should we be experimenting on animals or not?
Yeah, that's definitely one big branch of bioethics is like, those type of questions. So then Peter and I recently got back together working on this biodiversity app for a client called ESMC. It's a nonprofit working in the regenerative agriculture space that is developing a carbon marketplace and MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification software for monitoring and reporting on greenhouse gas emissions, reductions and removals. So Plant Group has kind of helped develop a software for that whole reporting system, and then Peter has come on recently as a consultant with his group, Anti-Fragile Agency, and we have done a few cool projects. We've been working with remote sensing data, so like satellite imagery, and then machine learning analysis of that to predict what's happening on the field, on the farmers' fields, and also like verify some of their claims. And then most recently, we got to work on a web application for helping producers and ranchers learn about and monitor different species important for conservation on their land. So I guess we were hoping to talk about the Biodiversity app a little bit today.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Why don't we bring it up? We can share the screen and check it out, because we were talking about it earlier today, and I am excited to see it live and in action. And I know that there's some stuff that we should just point out for people, like the ESG is a fairly new thing, so I'd like to get into some of that too, and whatever recent announcements and things we should be aware of. Very cool, very cool. Now you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, guys. You guys don't see my screen, do you?
No.
Okay. I'm just going to log in real quick. And so you can log in with the app, ecoharvest.app. We can put it in the, you already put it in the link. Thanks, Miriam. So Peter, I was hoping maybe you could start us off and give a little context. A large part of it, obviously, is the design, but also the UX, user experience, research. We interviewed ranchers and farmers, and then Peter also did like an assessment of like what the current biodiversity app space look like to help kind of inform some of the direction for the platform. So Peter, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. And stop me if it gets a bit too boring. So I'll start with the general context. There's two main approaches basically to biodiversity. It's using either satellite data or crowdsourced data. And there's like 4 or 5 kind of major platforms, and it's growing. But the big one is Limu out of Chile, and it's heavily relying on crowdsourced data. And it's supported right now by, I think, Elon Musk's X Prize, which is like an ecological prize. So they've gotten some traction there. But it's supported mainly by ecological data. And then the other platform is iNaturalist, which is kind of like a social networking. It's like Facebook or LinkedIn for tagging plants and animals, that type of thing. So we saw that there was like basically issues with both approaches, the way they were both being done. So the satellite data, you can only really capture basically because the satellite flies over maybe every week or so. You get photos, so you can only see basically changes in vegetation. You can't really get animals, because they're much faster. They move more than once a week.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, satellite data is useful for certain things, and then there's the crowdsourcing, which there's this problem with, not everybody has the expertise to identify species properly and that kind of thing. So we're like, okay, let's go for a middle of the road approach and combine the best of both worlds. And also we really wanted to make it friendly, and we were tossing around the ideas of Pokemon Go as kind of a aesthetic to make it accessible even for kids, maybe like in schools and educational programs, like give it off to kids. And like, why not?
Yeah.
Everybody can play a role. So that's kind of the general mixture of things we were thinking about. But so it's got a kind of very sophisticated approach where it's like it can handle like this intense satellite imagery, like really intense analysis from multiple places. But it's also very much more friendlier to people, like than the current kind of social crowdsourcing based platforms.
Okay. So when you go in as a guest, what are the things that you can do? Or you have to really register to be able to use it?
You have to register to use it. No, there is a guest account. My bad. Did you try that, Miriam?
Yeah, I'm trying it.
Nice. Also, I'm actually just having issue. The app is just like under active development, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
I'm having issues even on my side right now. So the basic idea is in the first tab is learn mode. It looks like there's something. Yeah, I think they're probably just pushing an update, Miriam. So that's just bad timing on my part. But the first tab is the learn mode. So you basically learn about different species. There's a lot of cool filtering. So you can like filter by location, plant, the category, animal, insect, plant, the conservation status. Is it endangered? Perhaps is it invasive? So you have all these different filtering. So the first thing is they learn. On the second tab, they actually jump into map mode.
Will you share your screen again so we can see what you're seeing?
Yeah, I would, but I'm just the app is like, yeah, it's having an issue right now. I think they're just doing an update. So hopefully it'll adjust soon. If not, I will just send you some follow-up videos.
Yeah, so where are the most active people that are contributing to this crowdsourced data? And why is this important?
Yeah, so the app actually hasn't this is just the release now. I mean, it's not officially being used. It's just been used by test users to this point. But the people that are going to be using the app like coming up in the spring and this season are ranchers, are producers that are enrolled in this ESMC market program. So these are Missouri and Kansas, ranchers and farmers that are already enrolled in the ESMC program, generating like carbon and or water quality credits. And they're going to be kind of like experimenting with biodiversity pilots. So actually like pilot programs to get producers paid for actually doing things like planting a vegetative buffer, for example, with native species, or a prairie strip with different wildflowers to promote pollinator habitat.
That's
So,
great.
yeah,
You don't-
so we have some sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Oh, could I just maybe riff off of that? Is like, from what I understood, is like there's kind of three general groups. There's like researchers who have like a very rigorous type of data, and they're creating the main database. There's the ranchers, regenerative ranchers, who are actually changing their practices in relation to the information. And then it's like we're trying to open it up to the public, further down the road. And I think, Austin, you said we're working with indigenous communities also. We have ties to indigenous communities.
Yeah, that's well, I've shared the app with a researcher friend I know. He said that he has worked with people that could be interested in using something like this, even in a reservation context. But like they were actually interested in even the possibility of having their own map. So I think one of the things that we're thinking about is the feature is not live yet, is basically like the user will have the option to contribute their data to a community map. So it could be like just an individual farmer or group's map, or they could just have the option to contribute their map to the community map. And then you would have like all these geotagged observations like collected into shareable data. And I think that would be interesting, because then basically you can have some validation in the app. So if a farmer says, okay, I saw 10 milkweeds established here, if they had it available to the public, somebody could come and actually verify that claim. So that has not actually been developed yet, but it's an idea that I'm interested in. I think would be really useful. Would be the community map.
Interesting.
Yeah, totally worst timing here with the demo. Sorry, Miriam. This is like cutting edge. Like they're putting out updates in every day. So we'll do a follow up hopefully when it's smoother. How's it working on your side? Is it also lagging on the mobile when you try to go check out the map mode?
Me?
Yeah.
I was on the web.
Oh, you're on the web. Nice.
Yeah.
But
I just went in guest mode and was able to access search, and I was able to access FAQ.
Oh, got you. Maybe I'll check on that, but I think that might even be maybe in guest mode you can't actually tag. I think that's right. You're not actually able to tag observations on the map.
Yes, the map takes you to log in. It says, hey, you got to log in to.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, so that's good for people to know if you want to use the map mode. And actually, so in the map, let's talk about that. So the map mode is basically, it'll pull up a map and you can zoom to your location or just like put in another location. It'll zoom to that area on the map, and then you can click the edit icon and drop in points. And so points are just points on lat-long coordinates on a map. You can drag your point anywhere. And then to that point, you assign your observations. So you say, I saw this species, this quantity, and the time fills in. So you can have obviously multiple observations to a point. So if you saw multiple species.
What if you don't know what species you are? I mean, the regular person like myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I know what the plants are that I planted in my yard.
Yeah, totally. So the use case is more people, these producers who know what plants they're looking for, and land managers, but it's a good point if we want to make it more accessible. There's a few options there. So one is make learn mode really fun, so people actually learn how to identify species better and enjoy that. And then another aspect of it is the machine learning computer vision verification. So basically, if somebody we can tap in with other APIs out there that actually have already worked on a lot of the image recognition problems to come up with a reasonable prediction or estimate of what this plant is. But yeah, the main use case are like these people enrolling in this program doing, knowing which species, native plants they're looking out for. But even then, I think that like hopefully the learn mode that can give you the information to really dive in and hopefully start identifying some of these species.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I'm going to register for that. What inspired you, Peter, to get involved in this project?
So I was doing what is it called? I've been doing UX design for almost a decade. So that's the primary principal reason, but I've always had an interest in ecology and kind of how this interacts with society, especially today, and what technology can do. So this is actually something that it's kind of weird to say, or like it would be weird, counterintuitive, but when I was in school in Syracuse University, there's a lot of people in media arts that were talking about ecology and understanding it in terms of media as kind of like a feedback, as we're kind of interrelated with ecology, and we're creating a feedback system rather than just there's nature separate and then there's humans and then there's like machines, So at the time it was like kind of avant-garde stuff where a few years ago we're experimenting with how to interconnect these things. And I think that was kind of, I was like, oh, there's a lot of popular awareness of these issues and all this stuff. And I was like, there's actually solid solutions in art from years ago that could be massaged into place in certain contexts. So that's kind of what I was interested in. I was like, oh, what if all this stuff in art that was like avant-garde art a few years ago could actually be applied now?
Very cool. Very cool. And so you guys are going to continue to work on this. The app is in a suitable place for your client. They're pleased. And so now you're just playing around with what other things you can spin off from it.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of opportunity. So basically the app is minimum viable product is kind of what the contract was for, and the client seems very pleased with it. This is kind of cool. You can explore the predator-prey relationships. So like what are the different predators to these animals? This is the sharp-shinned hawk. What are this animal's prey? So that's kind of a cool thing that we were really excited about as like features in the app to explore the interrelationship between species.
Yes.
So look out for some really cool features with that coming out. Definitely encourage you to use the app. Map mode will be in operation very soon. And survey mode is where you can actually so after you've tagged your observations on the map, you can basically draw a zone, a monitoring zone, and then you can export your data for different a time window and your monitoring zone. You can export it into a CSV, make it super easy to analyze, and the app will also calculate a biodiversity index score, which you can use to quantify impact over time. And then we also encourage you, if you don't see a species that you think should be in the app, just go ahead and fill out the form on the FAQs page, and we can add new species there. So we definitely look forward to that feedback. And just keep in mind that the species in the app are sort of tailored specifically for this agricultural biodiversity use case. It includes species that are, important for like native habitat and things, but also will include invasive species as a kind of management tool for people, for kind of warn producers what to look out for at the same time. For example, this wild boar can be a menace in a lot of farms. And also just keep in mind that this is not officially released yet, so you're one of the test users as you kind of explore the app, and definitely reach out and give us some feedback as well as we optimize this. works great on mobile. So if you actually go ahead and just navigate on the web browser on your mobile, you can then just actually save the app to your screen, home screen, which is how I like to interact with it. And then you can just click your icon and open up the app, and definitely, explore learn mode. And then once you in the spring, or if you come out and you want to start tagging observations, you just switch into map mode there, and have fun. And yeah, thanks so much for having us.
I'm looking at it now on my phone, so I can check it out from there. And hey, Mr. Triplett, thanks for joining. Let us know if you have any questions. And we're, love for you to connect with these gentlemen. They're in the building apps space for biodiversity. Thanks for spending time with me as well, both of you. I know you had said that recently this summit at the UN was some sort of historic moment in this space for the world coming together to protect this knowledge. And so where is that coming to then give funding to others that want to get into this space if they're interested? How can they get started?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I do think that there seems to be a lot of opportunity in the biodiversity space for ESG, environmental, social governance. The carbon market has actually been around for a long time, since the 90s, I think, or something, like for 30 plus years, even though it's just like heating up now. The space that ESMC is in is called Scope 3. So it has to do with the emissions reporting within a company's actual supply chain. So like General Mills sells products that have, for example, wheat in it. And we can have projects enrolled that are doing things like cover cropping and reduced tillage on wheat fields. And that's how you draw that connection. But there's a lot of critics of the carbon market. The impermanence of it, the fact that it's so easily reversible, the farmer could till up their fields 5 years later and release the carbon, all sorts of things. And I think the carbon market is a great stepping stone for like thinking of economic pathways to conservation. But I think biodiversity is like the new kid on the block that is really turning a lot of heads. Because there's a lot of research out there that shows if you can document certain species presence, like that there's a functioning ecosystem happening, and all these ecosystem services like air purification and cleaning soil, cleaning water, providing food and all that are being supported. So I think it's really exciting. I think there's a lot of challenges. It's also like totally new. So probably a lot of the protocol still needs to be developed, like for example to have a certified biodiversity credit, but I think that there's a lot of interest, and we kind of see the app as like a stepping stone to just provide the infrastructure to enable people to start making these observations, and is like a good first step towards creating a full MRV, what they call it, a monitoring, reporting, and verification platform for a biodiversity related asset or impact unit that could be used on some of these marketplaces. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add on. It's like, I also, correct me if I'm going out of bounds here, is that I think there's a lot of dealing with biodiversity that's a lot more like informational labor is here and mediating labor. So I think that's an interesting kind of convergence, especially with today's technologies and culture. There's something there, I think, that because even when we're talking with a user, they were talking about gamification of biodiversity challenges, like spotting this type of indicator species or that type of thing. So there's a lot of opportunity here, but the trick is it's just it's a bit different from what's it called? it's, you know, it's a lot looser, but at the same time, there needs to be a lot more accuracy. So it's a little bit more difficult than starting like a standard media platform because you need to have like certified data and information. So this app is kind of well positioned to have kind of a really, what is it called? Like comparative look across platforms to be able to synthesize accuracy across platforms. But at the same time, it's trying to make it as friendly as possible. Like there's no effort in any other platform dealing with biodiversity to make it, you know, engaging for the public. So, but that's where I would see kind of like public engagement might kind of be a really powerful force, is kind of integrating it with culture, media culture, contemporary media culture.
That'd be interesting. How would that play out?
Well, yeah. So like one of the things is one of the users was calling for kind of almost like TikTok gamification, like spot this animal this week, you get like 100 coins or something. Or let's say there's a heavy media component into this app, integrated into the app. I don't think we mentioned, Austin, can you talk a little bit about the bioacoustics?
Sure. Yeah. So one of can you guys see my screen?
No, the last time I checked, it was there. Yeah, we could see it.
You see it? Okay. So sorry guys, map mode is working. I was just logged into
sick
to an old account. Sorry about that. So so Peter, you were asking about bioacoustics. So basically in the biodiversity space, bioacoustics is one of the kind of popular ways for trying to collect biodiversity data. So the idea is like you can just set up microphones and audio recording equipment and capture bird sounds. And those bird sounds can be kind of analyzed through different machine learning classification algorithms, you know, referencing things like Cornell's ornithology database and categorize the different bird calls, right? So that's a pretty interesting thing. We will be having a audio recording with built-in playback feature coming into the app very soon. But you know, also we want to look at pilots that just we can install those type of systems, you know, with like a Raspberry Pi setup and weatherproof casing, and just start playing with some audio data. So what you see here, guys, is a monitoring zone that has multiple points. From the zone, you can jump into your survey, but we'll just give you an example of like the points themselves have these observations assigned to them. So, okay, 2 sumac, 3 of this other type of sumac, you know, this type of clearwing, American crow, right? So basically what you can do is just click add a new observation, and let's go ahead and, I don't know, let's say we saw some milkweed, okay? And then add a quantity. Let's say we saw 3. Great. Just click save. And then from there, you can do different things. Yeah, you can add. Sorry, go ahead.
So you're adding this into the system right now?
Yeah, I'm adding this into this. Yeah, so this is obviously dummy data.
Okay.
This isn't real. But yeah, I'm going to add it to the system right now. And something to keep in mind just related to that of like, hey, well, if you can just add anything, what's the quality of the data? Which is a great question. Right, and that's where things like validation, verification come in down the line, you know, moving past the MVP. So there's a few ways to handle that. Like iNaturalist has a great way of basically allowing the community to upvote or downvote somebody's claims, right? So I think that's a really cool option. There's also the option of using machine learning systems, which is probably a combination of both. A lot of what Peter's research has, so I'm just going to add a note here. A lot of Peter's research is showing that there's actually like the overlap of humans and computers and AI is really the ideal way to deal with some of this complex ecological data. Peter, you want to like rap about that for a sec? Or?
Yeah, sure. That was kind of what my thesis in graduate school was a little bit about, was kind of, there was a lot of fear about automation. And I was like, wait a second, they can work together. And now there's this term in data science called human machine teams. And so this is a way of basically it's never going to be kind of like an assembly line process. It's much more like baking. Like you need these kind of precise mixtures of things, but every cake is different. So it's like, there's actually a lot of, it's actually, what I would say is actually going to create a lot of jobs, like people working with data sets and trying to make sense of it. It's actually going to open up a lot of opportunities for people. So yeah, we kind of wrote that into the paper and be like, and it's just, it's kind of like per context, the approach of how you use algorithms is different. I think there's a lot of this idea today that like an algorithm, there's one algorithm that knows everything. It's actually, no, there's like, you need different algorithms per different problem. So I see kind of like, this is biodiversity. I think there's going to be a diversity of how people think and approach and solve problems here. And I think that's the cool thing about biodiversity, because, carbon markets are focusing just on carbon as a problem. Biodiversity is, there's lots of this thing just gets more complicated as you think about it, or as you try to measure it, everything becomes much more complex.
Totally.
I know.
So how long have you two been working on this?
This is, believe it or not, so we also have a great team of developers we've been working with, and we put this together in about 2 months, which is kind of crazy. It has been
That's such a short amount of time. That's fucking rock stars.
Thanks. Yeah. I don't know if you're seeing this, but I'm just showing you how you can go in here and just drop points on the map. You can add a description and note. And then once you have a point, you just click observations. You can start assigning observations here. So let's say we got some coneflower. Okay. And again, you can have multiple observations of different species assigned to a point, right? So, okay, we're going to Merriam 2. I'm going to add another observation. Say I saw a wolf. Red wolf. Okay. So yeah, just wanted to kind of highlight that a point can have multiple observations, and basically if you want to export your data, all you have to do is just define a monitoring zone. I'm going to switch the map just to look at this satellite, just to see what it looks like. You just click on your edit icon and choose the polygon instead of the point. And then you just go in here and draw a little polygon.
Okay.
This is Merriam's turf. Wild Merriam. Rome's here. Okay. And then what's cool is once you have your monitoring zone defined, you can just go ahead and click on that zone. Oh, get out of that edit mode. Click on the zone, you see a little summary, which is kind of cool. So, okay, 0.02 acres, there's 2 points and 3 observations. I just click survey and it'll zip you right over to survey mode. And yeah, with survey mode, you basically can view a biodiversity index score, which is a way to quantify biodiversity. And again, we'll send some guides on how to interpret this, because it is relative to the amount or the species richness, the variety of different species. So we're going to put that in some documentation, but it's a cool way that you can do that. And what you can also do is basically define a time window, define a monitoring zone on the drop down, and just click export. And what that will do is export a zip with some different files for you to take a look at. The one that you're going to be most interested in will be the observations data, CSV. Mm-hmm. And you can also export your media and notes and different things. But with this one, what you'll have is a just flat data format where you can see the timestamp and the location and the actual species and quantity that you observed. So what's cool about this, it'll make the researchers' lives super easy to be able to just export this data instead of going out in the field, pencil and paper, making their observations, having to digitize it later.
Right.
So that was one of our goals, is to actually have, like, provide a practical utility there on the data collection side for some of the ecologists and field techs that are having to do this work.
Right. They're out there.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just decided to make this open source part of it. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, you didn't have to do that.
Well, yeah. So, basically, I think, my experience with open source is just that it ultimately will benefit the cause, to have other people, developers who are interested and passionate, contribute their skills and just continue to evolve the platform. This project is specifically for ESMC. So it is sort of up to them what they want to do with this specific app. But at the same time, we do have core technologies through Plant Group that are definitely open source. We're also working, one of our developers has a thing called Wonder Mapper, which we use to do a lot of the GIS functionality. And this is really exciting stuff coming up. And they're a nonprofit, they're developing a lot of open source tools as well. And Wonder Mapper is basically going to be, it's an API, but it's also a technology for enabling organizations to make really rich functional maps. I mean, think about how, like, something like a CMS disrupted website creation.
Yeah.
That's sort of the idea for maps, because it turns out that a lot of organizations, especially conservation organizations and people working in biodiversity or ecosystem services, they need to map. And right now there's a big barrier of entry of, like, having to have GIS technicians work on this stuff. So that's where Wonder Mapper comes in. And we were able to use that tool for a lot of the map technology, which is pretty cool. I just want to shout something out too. Like, when you first jump on the app, in learn mode, the species you'll see it'll be randomized. And we don't show them all because then it would just take forever to load. What's kind of cool is, like, when you're looking at a species, you can click these little cards and get some different previews about their uses. Like, okay, it's eaten by animals like black bear, the blue dicks, who knew, and other animals. And then it also has information about food and health. Corms have been gathered by Native Americans in California. Important starch source for their diet. Okay, cool. Like, so I love going in here and just also learning stuff. A lot of the information the information is curated from a combination of sources, including iNaturalist. We need to add more info on this page. I don't know why that's so blank. I'll look into that. But a lot, if you're interested in looking at the data, you can just jump over to the FAQs page. And you can see here, how is this collected? And it'll tell you, crowdsourced and public data sets like Ladybird Johnson Wildflower and iNaturalist. But you can also view the raw spreadsheets. So in that sense, the data is open source, right? Which I think is really cool, and something that we wanted to make sure we did. At the same time, it's all public information, that is available online. So I think that's only natural to do that. And, we want to make as much information available as we can. Now, as far as ESMC, when people start using the app, that will depend on what the producer wants to do with their information. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the idea with the app, is that, like, if they're using it for something like a carbon market program and they need to be anonymous for different reasons, or they need to go through the ESMC program, you've got that app, you have the ability to do that. But then you also have the option with the community map mode to kind of jump in and do some of this more the citizen science stuff. So that was definitely, I think, a conscious decision to make it flexible enough where it could support those different use cases.
I love it. So 2 months in, how do you guys break down like the founder, co-founder, co-partner, like the working relationship of building an app together? Like who does
Sure.
what have you guys, talk to me about some business best practices for other founders out there.
Yeah. So basically the way that we have done it is
Expand a little bit, Austin, because you've done a lot of things. We've known each other for a while.
yeah.
So you've done multiple projects, you've worked on stuff. Drop some nuggets when it comes to
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Peter, I mean, again, I've said it before, Peter and I are like longtime collaborators. So we've done all sorts of stuff, paid and non-paid, and just we always have fun creating together. Like, for example, he brought a project a few years back to the table, which was we were making a system for a famous artist, Carrie Mae Weems, a photographer. And like, so we've always done these different weird projects together. It's kind of what we do. And as far as business, Peter was contracted out by Plant Group. That's sort of our model, is that we just work with a network of people who have their own businesses or collectives or whatever, or just individuals, and we find a common cause and we work together and sort of like, so I guess honestly that has been my approach, is autonomy, stressing autonomy and just building trust and like believing in the people. Like at the end of the day, like I just opened it up to Peter. I was like, okay, here's what I know. Can you figure this out? And it's like, I think having that type of trust is really important, and it takes time to build that up. But we're also all building our own things, which at the end of the day, I feel like makes us stronger.
Totally. What other stuff are both of you guys working on, Peter? I'd love to hear some of your stuff outside of the ESG biodiversity stuff.
Sure. My main half my main gig is, there's another technical project I'm working on. It's a fintech project. It's kind of this like kind of mid-level trading interface, which I'm also going to bring Austin on later. But it's like it's stemming from our research, kind of semi-automated, semi-human driven. But it's a kind of complex such a thing I can't talk too much about right now. But in terms of art, so I was kind of I have a partner, her name is Selma Summon, who's a lot more famous than I am, and I was kind of assisting and technically advising for the last year. So we kind of ran through the biggest art, hurdles of like biennales, Documenta, Venice Biennale, all this stuff. So I'm kind of clearing out from that. But I would say about the kind of working method, it was interesting, but it's true. It's like, so what I thought was unique about this working group was that everybody had their own kind of initiative. And then what I would say the image is kind of like Twister, is like we're kind of like filling each other's kind of blind spots. And that was a kind of like beautiful, it was very organic, actually. That's what I would say about the working process. And what was it? Oh, so I'm also kind of developing a kind of, what I'd say, like a UX and project management kit, using kind of newer contemporary tools like Web3 tools like Discord, Miro, Loom, all these types of things to make kind of remote management a lot easier. And I got to prototype that with Austin for this project, which I'm super glad for that.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like that's where Peter is like, he just not only did he do the design, but he streamlined the whole process. Like, so he came in and he was like, which I know it sounds maybe not that crazy, but he was like, he just set up like one of the first things he did was set up a Discord channel, which hopefully we can share in one of these follow-up links if people want to join. And that was just like really foundational for just being able to work in a super agile way. We have all these developers and they're up at random times and doing all sorts of things.
Interesting.
So yeah, like, and that's what he's talking about, like just some of these process, and he set up a Miro board. Do you use Miro? Miriam?
Excuse me. I have used it. I'm familiar with what it does, but no, I do not use those.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool agile best practices I felt like that, Peter, you brought to the table, which was really cool and helped a lot with the app. But also it's like in the evolution of some of those agile practices with some of the newer tools. So it was really useful. And I think just back to your question, like what's our approach? I feel like it's basically supporting what each other is doing and like, you know, realizing where all the synergies are. Like right now, Miriam has a new regenerative communications thing. Like that's really cool. I love just combining those words even.
Right? We should
Um,
be communicating it. Why don't you go into a little bit about regeneration? Because that's a new term. We were talking a little bit about that earlier.
Sure. Yeah. So in the context of we've been working on with ESMC, they talk about regenerative agriculture, which different people mean different things by it. But in general, a lot of the times it seems to be people talking about soil health. So like actually creating feedback loops to input energy back into the system, through soil conservation, basically, like whether that's using organic amendments or protecting the soil with cover cropping. And that is linked to biodiversity too. One of the things we haven't talked about, everything with the biodiversity app we've been talking about above ground biodiversity, but below ground biodiversity, the worms, the microbiota, the microbes, the fungi, these are all like really important things. And what's cool is actually, I think with the app, we could accommodate that too, because you could just basically use the app to drop points, take soil samples and get them analyzed for soil biodiversity too, which would be really cool. That was one of the goals with the app too, was like to make something that could be used in a lot of different ways. We wanted to make something that was just almost like infrastructure, that would be flexible depending on how people wanted to measure biodiversity. And for example, like we can add more species, we can add different filters. So yeah, we're excited to see where it goes, and hopefully people have fun with it and get some good use out of it. One of the things that has been on my mind, that like one of the interviews Peter and I did with a rancher in Texas who is using the app. She provided a lot of feedback for the app. She's actually like an iNaturalist power user, so she had a lot of good like just feedback. But one of her things was she really wanted us to look into gamification. And it's like, could we build like incentive systems in? It's like, okay, farmer, you tag 10 native plants, here's $10, and things like that. And I think that's really interesting too, is just like there could be alternative crowdsourced funding structures to pay for this sort of like micro conservation efforts.
Yeah. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Get it done however we need to do.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. I know I've taken up a lot of your time today. For those that are watching this back, I'd love to be able to connect them with you guys. Should they have more questions and they want to reach out, how do they go about doing that?
Thank you so much for asking. Yes. So if they want to get in touch, they can check out our website. You can just go to plantgroup.co. You could also email us at info@plantgroup.co. We're on Instagram, plant_group. Reach out on LinkedIn, any one of these, and we will be happy to talk with you. Plant Group not only develops software and different environmental monitoring tools, but we also do on the ground projects. So if you're interested in, let's say, planting a wildflower or native plant garden, you can feel free to reach out and talk to us. And yeah, super excited. Thank you so much for having us on here, Miriam. This was really fun.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
this is amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Tell everyone before you go what plant group.
Yes.
That acronym so much.
Yeah, so plant group is plant, people learning about nature together.
So good. I'm into it.
So that's our mission. I think that's what we did with this latest app. And that's kind of what's cool is like every project we do, like we try to have some element of people learning about nature together. So like, for example, the last project we did with your brother and Zach at Blue Forest Farms, as we planted a hemp farm. We planted hemp for seeds in Iowa, and we had people from all over, for people from Brooklyn coming out, talking to farmers from Iowa, and we were just all connecting around this plant, this amazing plant, hemp, that is amazing at sequestering carbon in the soil, provides food and fiber and medicine. So yeah, people learning about nature together. That's what we're about, and connect with us on whatever, on any platform, and look forward to hearing from you.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for those. We just finished up wrapping a conversation with Plant Group. We were lucky enough to have founder Austin and his partner Peter coming in. Make sure you follow them, connect, and have a great, wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Is the record? Did you stop recording?
Yeah.